By the time you realize you should not have defended yourself, it is already over. Not the conversation. That ended minutes ago. What is over is something quieter and far more permanent, the way you are now stored in someone else's mind. That change does not announce itself. No one tells you it happened. No one reacts dramatically. The room does not shift. Voices do not rise. But a decision is made anyway, and once it is made, it does not fully reverse. This is the part most people never see. They believe defense is an event, a moment, something that happens under pressure and then disappears. They think if they explain well enough, if they calm things down, if they clarify their intent, the system resets. It does not. Human beings do not work like that. They record patterns, they remember positions, they file you away based on how you behave when friction appears, not when things are smooth. You can be calm 100 times. You can be competent 1,000 times. It only takes one visible defense for the classification to shift. Because defense is not heard as information, it is read as orientation. When you defend yourself, you reveal where you stand relative to pressure. You reveal that pressure can move you. That accusation pulls something out of you. That misunderstanding creates urgency inside you. The content of your defense barely matters. What matters is that it happened at all. People do not consciously think this through. They feel it. Their nervous system registers it. Something subtle clicks into place. This person responds downward when challenged. This person explains. This person reacts. And once that label forms, everything that follows is filtered through it. This is why defending yourself never feels as effective as you hope it will. Even when you win the argument, even when the other person backs down, even when they apologize, something still feels off afterward. You feel slightly smaller, slightly exposed, slightly misaligned. That is not imagination. That is the aftertaste of reclassification. The dangerous part is that this does not only apply to enemies or manipulators. It applies everywhere. Work, relationships, social groups, even strangers. Anyone who witnesses you defending yourself, directly or indirectly, receives the same signal. This is not someone who stands. This is someone who responds. Once that signal is sent, it lingers. You cannot argue your way out of it because arguments are part of the same category. You cannot explain it away because explanation reinforces the same orientation. You cannot fix it emotionally because emotion is what created it. The system does not reset because it was never a conscious decision to begin with. This is why people who defend themselves often feel like they have to keep defending themselves. The first defense creates a gravity well. Others sense it. They test again, slightly, casually, not aggressively, just enough to see if the pattern repeats. And when it does, the classification hardens. At that point, it is no longer about what you did or did not do. It is about what you are now expected to do. Expectation is power. Once someone expects you to respond, they have leverage. Once they expect explanation, they feel entitled to judgment. Once they expect emotional movement, they begin to shape it. They may not even realize they are doing this. They simply feel more comfortable pushing because the risk feels lower. This is why certain people seem to attract scrutiny, criticism, or constant questioning, while others are left alone. It is not fairness. It is not merit. It is not personality. It is memory. Behavioral memory stored in other people's nervous systems. Defending yourself teaches others how to interact with you. And the lesson is never the one you intend to teach. Most people defend themselves because they believe the threat is misunderstanding. They think if they correct the record, the danger disappears. But misunderstanding is not the threat. The threat is being seen as someone who needs to correct the record. The moment you show that need, the frame tilts. This is why silence feels so uncomfortable after you have already defended yourself once. Silence no longer feels neutral. It feels like absence. It feels like something you owe. Because once you explain, people expect continued access. They expect continued clarity. They expect continued cooperation. The debt begins the moment you open your mouth. You can feel this in how conversations change afterward. The other person becomes looser, more casual with their assumptions, more willing to interrupt. more willing to interpret your behavior out loud. They may even start speaking about you as if you are not fully present, summarizing you, defining you, explaining you back to yourself. They are not trying to dominate you. They are simply operating within the role you demonstrated. And roles, once assigned, are difficult to escape. The most dangerous illusion around defending yourself is the belief that context matters. That if you explain the background, the nuance, the intention, people will adjust. Context does not raise status, it lowers it. Context is something you offer when you are trying to be evaluated correctly. But evaluation itself implies hierarchy. Someone who stands above you evaluates. Someone who stands beside you does not require context. This is why powerful people are constantly misunderstood and rarely corrected. Not because they enjoy being misread, but because correction costs more than it gives. They understand that perception, once formed, is more stable than truth. Truth requires maintenance. Perception persists on its own. Defending yourself is agreeing to maintenance. Once you agree to maintenance, you have accepted a subordinate position in the exchange. You are now responsible for keeping the image clean, updated, accurate. Any deviation invites further correction. Any silence invites suspicion. Any restraint is interpreted as avoidance. This is how people end up trapped in endless clarification loops. They think they are protecting themselves, but they are actually reinforcing the expectation that they must. The damage is not dramatic. It is cumulative. Each defense adds another data point. Each explanation deepens the groove. Each emotional response confirms the pattern. Eventually, you do not even need to be accused anymore. People preemptively interpret you. They speak for you. They decide how you feel, what you meant, why you acted. And because you defended yourself before, they feel justified doing it again. At this stage, many people mistake the problem. They think the issue is the other person's behavior. They think they need better boundaries, stronger words, sharper comebacks. They think if they explain more firmly, more confidently, more calmly, the respect will return. It rarely does. Because the problem is not tone, it is history. Once your nervous system is registered as reactive, others unconsciously interact with you from that assumption. You can feel this when you walk into a room and people are already braced for your response. They speak carefully, or casually, or provocatively, all based on what they think will happen next. They are not responding to who you are now. They are responding to what you showed them under pressure. This is why just this once is a lie. There is no such thing as a single defense. There is only the first one. After that, everything is interpreted through it. And this is why people who never defend themselves seem to live in a different world. Not because they are superior, not because they are fearless, but because there is no record to reference, no stored pattern, no expectation to exploit. Without that record, people hesitate. They become cautious. They do not know what will happen if they push. And uncertainty creates restraint far more effectively than explanation ever could. The absence of defense creates ambiguity. Ambiguity protects status. This is also why defending yourself feels urgent in the moment. Your body senses the risk of misclassification, even if your mind does not. It panics. It wants to correct, to fix, to restore balance. But the irony is that the act of trying to restore balance is what tips it permanently. Your body is solving the wrong problem. It thinks the threat is being wronged. The real threat is being placed below pressure, below judgment, below interpretation. Once placed, movement becomes harder. Every step requires justification. Every refusal feels heavier. Every silence feels loaded. This is the quiet prison defending yourself builds. And the most dangerous part is that it feels voluntary. You feel like you chose to speak, like you chose to explain, like you chose to defend. But the choice was made long before that moment. It was made by conditioning, by years of learning that explanation equals safety, that clarity equals approval, that being understood equals being protected. Those rules stop working the moment status enters the equation. Status does not reward clarity. It rewards containment. Containment is what you give up when you defend yourself. You leak information, you leak emotion, you leak urgency. All of it becomes usable by anyone watching closely enough, not necessarily maliciously, just mechanically. Human systems are mechanical like that. Once you see this, it becomes impossible to unsee. You start noticing how often people defend themselves unnecessarily, how often they rush to correct a perception that was never truly dangerous, how often they volunteer context that no one asked for, how often they hand over authority without realizing it. And you also start noticing the opposite, the people who say very little when challenged, the ones who do not hurry, the ones who let statements hang without addressing them, the ones who allow others to sit in their own interpretations. These people are not always right. They are not always good, but they are rarely questioned twice because there is no record of compliance. This is the uncomfortable truth Part 1 leaves you with. Defending yourself is not a weakness because it feels emotional. It is a weakness because it creates a permanent reference point, a memory in the system that says pressure works here. Once that memory exists, it never fully disappears. You can grow, you can change, you can become stronger, calmer, more controlled. But the people who saw you defend yourself will always carry that earlier version with them. They will measure you against it. They will test it. They will look for it. And this is why the only real power move is not learning how to defend yourself better. It is understanding that the first defense is the only one that matters, because it is the one that writes the record. Once you understand that the record exists, the urge to fix it becomes almost unbearable. Your mind immediately looks for ways to correct perception, to overwrite memory, to show that the earlier response does not represent you anymore. This is where most people make the final mistake. They believe the solution to a contaminated record is replacement, more strength, more confidence, better explanations delivered with better posture and calmer tone. They believe they can outgrow the damage by performing improvement in front of the same audience. But status memory does not update the way information does. It does not replace old data with new data. It stacks. Every additional effort to demonstrate control is filtered through the original classification. If you explain calmly now, you are seen as someone who learned to explain calmly. If you remain composed now, you are seen as someone who learned composure. Growth is acknowledged, but the orientation remains unchanged. You are still someone who responds. This is why trying to correct perception feels exhausting. You are working uphill against a system that does not forget its first impression under pressure. And the more effort you invest, the more visible your investment becomes. Visibility here is not strength. It is confirmation that the issue still matters to you. The instinct to repair is strong because humans are wired to seek equilibrium. Social imbalance feels like threat. When you sense that your position has slipped, your nervous system pushes you toward action. Speak, clarify, reassert. Do something, anything that reduces uncertainty. But this impulse is exactly what keeps the record alive. What actually changes the record is not replacement. It is starvation. Records only remain active as long as new data reinforces them. When no new response is added, the memory stops evolving. It does not disappear, but it loses relevance. Over time, people stop referencing it because it no longer predicts anything useful. This is the part that feels counterintuitive. The way out is not to demonstrate strength. It is to stop contributing altogether. Non-contribution is not silence as a tactic. It is not withdrawal as punishment. It is not restraint performed for effect. It is the removal of reaction as a source of information. When pressure no longer produces movement, the system has nothing to learn. At first, this creates friction. People who are used to your responses feel disoriented. They probe. They repeat themselves. They escalate slightly, not to attack, but to confirm whether the old pattern still exists. This is not hostility. It is testing for reliability. Reliability, in this context, is vulnerability. When nothing arrives in response, the test fails, not loudly, quietly. There is no confrontation, just a pause where something should have happened and did not. That pause is where the shift begins. Without new reactions, the old record starts losing its predictive power. People no longer know what to expect from you. The previous classification becomes outdated, not wrong, just unhelpful. This is how status actually changes, not through assertion, but through irrelevance. Irrelevance is uncomfortable to the ego because it feels passive. It feels like doing nothing. But in systems built on prediction, irrelevance is destabilizing. When others cannot anticipate your behavior, they slow down. They become cautious. They stop assuming access. This caution is not fear. It is recalibration. At this stage, something subtle happens internally as well. The urge to defend does not vanish immediately. It surfaces, sometimes intensely. You feel the familiar pressure in your chest. The words line up in your mind. The explanation forms itself before you decide to speak. This reflex does not disappear just because you understand it. What changes is that you no longer obey it. You let the impulse rise and fall without acting on it. This feels like withholding at first, like restraint. But over time, it becomes something else. The impulse weakens, not because you suppress it, but because it no longer produces relief when acted upon. Relief was the reward that trained the reflex. When you defended yourself in the past, the immediate relief taught your nervous system that explanation reduces threat. Now, by not acting, you remove the reward. The body learns a new association, that nothing catastrophic happens when you do not respond. This is how the reflex dissolves. As it dissolves, your internal state becomes quieter, not numb. Quieter. The background urgency fades. Situations that once demanded immediate response now register as neutral. You still notice them, but they do not pull you forward. This internal stillness is not confidence. It is disengagement from a false requirement. You no longer feel responsible for correcting how others see you. That responsibility was never yours, but it felt like it was because you kept acting on it. Now, by not acting, the illusion breaks. What others think continues to exist, but it loses its weight. This is where many people misinterpret what is happening. They believe they are becoming detached, colder, less invested. In reality, they are becoming less entangled. Entanglement is what made defense feel necessary. Without entanglement, there is nothing to protect. You do not protect what you do not hand over. As the pattern continues, the environment responds, not immediately and not uniformly. Some people adjust their behavior. They become more careful with their words. They stop making casual assumptions. They ask instead of declare. Others pull back. They feel the loss of leverage and redirect their energy elsewhere. Both responses serve the same function. They reduce pressure. The system is learning that pressure no longer yields return. This learning does not require your participation. In fact, your participation would slow it down. The more invisible the change, the more durable it becomes. This is why restraint must be unperformed. The moment you start thinking of it as a strategy, it becomes readable. Readability reintroduces predictability. Predictability reopens the door. True non-defense is not an action you take. It is an action you no longer take. There is a moment, later, when you realize something has shifted permanently. You notice that accusations no longer land the same way. Not because they are gentler, but because they feel incomplete, as if they are missing a required component. That component used to be your reaction. Without it, the accusation has nowhere to go. You also notice that misunderstandings no longer provoke urgency. You register them as information, not threats. You do not rush to correct them. You let them exist. Most of them resolve themselves. The ones that do not were never truly resolvable through explanation anyway. This is when emotional reactions begin to feel inefficient. Not wrong, inefficient. They demand energy without producing leverage. They expose internal movement without creating external change. You stop feeding them. What remains is a heavier presence. Not louder, heavier. Conversations slow around you. People pause more. They choose words with greater care. Or they disengage quickly. There is less casual testing, less unconscious probing. You are no longer easy to sample. This heaviness is not intimidation. It is density. Your responses carry less information, so each one matters more. Silence, in particular, becomes structural rather than expressive. It is no longer used to communicate. It simply exists, and existence without explanation is difficult to argue with. At this point, defending yourself feels almost strange, like a behavior from another time. You can imagine doing it, but it no longer feels aligned with how you move. It would feel excessive, indulgent, as if you were stepping backward into a role you already left. This is the quiet end state. Not empowerment, not victory, just alignment. You are no longer managing perception. You are no longer maintaining records. You are no longer trying to be placed correctly. You let placement fail. Without placement, control loses its grip. The final realization is simple and heavy. You were never required to defend yourself. You only believed you were. That belief kept the system alive. When the belief dissolves, so does the need. You do not feel superior now. You do not feel detached from others. You feel contained, self-held. There is less movement inside you that needs an outlet. Reactions still arise, but they no longer ask for expression. They pass through without demanding form. This is why the world feels quieter. Not because people stop talking, but because nothing is pulling you forward anymore. And in that stillness, defending yourself no longer feels like a mistake. It feels unnecessary. That is how this ends. Not with instruction, not with warning, not with reassurance, just with the absence of urgency where it used to live. Nothing to prove, nothing to correct, nothing to defend.